I used to work at a video store in Seattle in the 90s. We had quite a few celebrity customers, even a few porn stars too. It was a wacky work environment that could feel pretty unsafe at times, but that unpredictability was half of the allure. I honestly loved the job and the crazy, unhinged customers that came with it. There was a porn star that would come in frequently. I'll call her Rebecca, whose visits I would absolutely dread. She only seemed to come in when I was working alone. She would always ask me the same question: which of my movies do you carry? Now, she didn't ask this in any kind of unreasonable manner. Rebecca was a little older, clearly had a whole career behind her. She looked and acted a little crazy, like she was out of her mind, but she was also very obviously high. She'd come in, jaw grinding, her teeth together, and her eyes would bulge out of her head like they were some prosthetic special effect. She was skinny from years of substance abuse, probably various personal issues with weight and image. Rebecca also reeked of booze and cigarettes most of the time. She would scream, "Which of my movies do you carry?" over and over again with that cracked out energy. I repeatedly told her, over and over, our computer system would only look up movies by title, not by actors or actresses, but this fact never seemed to get through to her. Every time she would start screaming at me, "How in the hell can you find out which of my movies you have then?" she would scream. I offered to walk her back to the adult section. She could see the stock shelves for herself, but she would always scoff, as if totally disgusted at that idea. This is where it gets bewildering because she's a porn star who's already come into the adult film store. "I'm not going in there," she yells. "Lady, you're already in here. What's it gonna hurt to go scan the shelves real quick?" In my head, I'm thinking she's a porn star, and she won't walk the aisles and look at the covers. It made me think she was even crazier than she was letting on. What'd she think she'd find in there? Just how out of touch with reality was this woman anyway? She would yell at me for a bit before calming down and then leaving, but this scene played out at least a dozen times. She wasn't the worst customer I had, but she came to be the one that I dreaded the most. But then one week she didn't show up. Monday, Tuesday, the whole week went by and still no Rebecca. It was a huge relief, but part of me wondered something bad happened to her. Was she getting extra spun out and would come in even more crazy? The reasonable side of me figured that she'd OD'd. When another week went by without her presence, she left my mind entirely. Fast forward a month or so, guess who comes slithering through the double doors? It's Rebecca, and she looks like hell. First off, she clearly hasn't showered for several weeks, maybe since the last time that I saw her. You could always tell when she was really unwashed because her hair would just get more and more vertical. I don't know how else to explain it, other than the grease would just hold up this overly dyed, frazzled hair. Her clothes are about the same as always. Nightwear and half sporty Valley mom. All of this is nothing when I see her face though. She has a huge black eye, and her eyes themselves are just completely insane. She's got pupils like dinner plates. The outer rim, instead of white, is tinged with this deep, deep yellow. I can't tell if she's sick or more hungover than any human I've ever seen. She comes to the counter and sparks up that same shtick she always does. "What movies do you have? Where are they? How many copies?" I try to be a little personable and say, "Hey Rebecca, it's been a while since I've seen you. We still don't have an updated system that allows me to search those specifics. I can show you the shelves, that might help you, though I'll never forget the look she gave me, just this far away nod, half smile with her mouth all jittery. She asked me if I was sure, to which I said yes. Then she started backing up towards the exit. Unsure of what was going on, I figured she was in the middle of an episode, would see herself out, probably disappear for another few weeks. I'd heard of mentally ill people being stuck in loops of behavior. Maybe visiting the video store was part of her loop. Boy, how wrong was I, though. The door opens not 30 seconds later, and a big, tall, sharp-dressed guy strolls in. I extend a welcome but hesitate. This guy looks pissed. He's storming right up to the counter. I ask if there's anything I can help him with. He sets his hands on the countertop, and they are blinding, studded with all kinds of gold and silver, crusted diamonds in between them. He calmly explains that I'm the problem and that he's here as a solution. Oh, I start to come back with something about how I'm just an employee here. If he wants the cash in the register or the pornos in the back, he can have them. The guy laughs at me, shakes his head, then explains that I'm just upset his friend who was just in here. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Rebecca, the crazy, cracked out porn star who's been pestering me for months, somehow secured backup. I tell him that I don't know her at all. She's just a needy customer who wants to find her films. There's not an easy way for me to do that, so she'll just have to look over the titles herself. This guy cuts me off with a wave of his hand, says he knows, he's heard every word. He's heard it so many times that he feels like it's happening to him, and now he needs to get involved. It turns out Rebecca was pretty much what I pegged her for. This guy was clearly gang or drug related, maybe even a kingpin. He acted like he was Rebecca's handler, almost like a pimp or something. She was so old, there was no way he had her tricking. I mean, I guess there's a market for anything, but I got more the vibe that he had a relationship with her for himself. Whatever the case, it's now my problem. I'm looking up at this coke machine of a man, deciding if I should hit the security button. This is just a video store, so part of me didn't even think that would work, but it was down at the other end of the counter, and if I moved, this guy was going to snatch me up for sure. He states Rebecca's full name, then her stage name. They were similar, probably more similar than you'd want them to be. I realized then that Rebecca was probably pretty easy to look up in the phone book if you were clever enough. He then asked me, "Which movies do you have with her in them?" Obviously, he didn't want the same excuses I'd given before, so I threw my hands up in defeat. I logged into the computer beside me, pulled up the inventory list of the entire store, started doing it the old-fashioned way. I jotted down a short list of titles that I recognized and just started from there. It took me almost an hour to find every single tape, constantly double, checking the shelves and discount racks for hidden copies. The whole time that guy just casually followed me around, not saying a word, just watching me gather them all up in a tub on the counter. He'd crack his knuckles, roll his neck, textbook intimidation stuff. It was like a scene from a mob movie. It was only after I started to pile up all the tapes that I realized just how extensive Rebecca's career was. She was a mainstream actress for like 20 years, from what I could tell, and had been produced by some of the bigger studios throughout the decades. It occurred to me that this crackhead burnout probably still received checks for some of this stuff. Now the guy behind me made sense. I said, I did it, that was it. I told him it'd take me a minute to ring them all out. He asked what I meant by that. I said a charge for all the films. I explained I couldn't just let 80 or 90 tapes just disappear from our store. The guy picks up the bin of movies with one arm, slides a pistol out of his waistband with the other, looks me up and down, sets the barrel on the counter, then asks me if we're good. I just nod with a sigh, tell him to take care. I called my boss after I saw them leave the parking lot, who in turn told me to call the police. Both of them showed up 20 minutes later. The police took a statement, and my boss filed a report of robbery, then fired me right there on the spot. I've thought a lot about that guy, who he was, and why they wanted those movies. I work in retail, and there are only 5 of us that work in the store, including our manager. We are a very, very tight-knit family, so we naturally have each other's back for anything and everything. Tonight, my coworker and I were minding the store, and he needed to leave early for a dinner reservation with some friends that just got to town, so I covered the last 30 minutes alone. We work in an area that has a prominent homeless population, most of whom are wonderful people. After he left, within a few minutes, a very sketchy character came in that set my hair on end. This guy was about 6.5 feet tall, heavier set, and was generally intimidating. To add to the already scary vibe, he was holding a big gulp and a golf club, nothing else on his person. I'm a shorter, smaller female, so now I'm just on edge. He didn't hesitate to make conversation with me, and it's my job to be friendly and make sales, so I jumped in, hoping I'd learn he was harmless and coming back from a driving range or something. even though there's no golf courses within 20 miles of our workplace. Obviously, since you're reading this, I was terribly wrong. This man still had a hospital bracelet on from his 2-month long stay in a mental hospital, was very, very interested in me and every aspect of my life. He asked what I was studying, which was psychiatry, and then he was immediately put off, as he'd had a very bad experience. I mean, literally the moment he heard the word, it's like an alarm went off in his head. His whole expression changed completely. My heart does go out to people in this position who are clearly struggling, and it's my life's mission to help people like him. But no matter how much my heart went out to him, I was still very vulnerable. He then asked me the following questions: what's your name? Where do you live? Where do you go to school? When do you work? How often do you work? When is your next break? How old are you? Do you live alone? Is anyone else here? I lied to every single question, and when he demanded my phone number, I gave him the store phone number. I also told him my name was my manager's name, so that if he tried to make contact, he would be directed to someone that is not me. Thankfully, I was able to boot him out at close. Some of my answers were pretty vague, like where I lived, and that seemed to upset him a bit. Still, he left without much issue. When I left, I had changed my clothes and my hair to be a little less recognizable, and thank goodness that I did that, because he was waiting in the alley out back. I did my best not to notice and make it obvious, but I beelined for my car, which was in a parking lot across the street. This unfortunately gave him a bit of time. He soon came wandering out of that alley. I didn't turn around. I just played it cool and stared at the crosswalk sign glowing across the street. It changed, and I proceeded, just as I heard this guy sprinting up behind me. It's late. There's no one else around. I know what's about to happen. He's going to hit me in the head or in the knee or whatever, and then drag me into that alley. My nerves break, and I finally turn back. He was standing at the edge of the sidewalk, just staring at me. Once I turn, he can see my face. He grumbles something and then keeps following. I gave myself up. Now he knows it's me. He even starts hollering the fake name that I gave him. I didn't respond, just picked up the pace and hustled to my car. I figured as long as I could get inside, I could probably get myself out of here. Still, I hear his shoes scuffling the asphalt, gaining on me. When I think he must literally be right behind me, I want to turn around and look, but instead I just break into a full-on sprint. I can hear his steps stop a little and then hesitate. My outburst to get away must have caught him off guard. Just as I reached the door and slid the key in, I turned back one last time. I don't see the man, but his hand, fingers wrapped around the handle of the golf club. It's so close that I can read some of the print on the hospital band that's hanging from his wrist. I was so terrified and reeling with shock that my knees buckled. My legs totally gave out from underneath me. As they did, the golf club went whistling overhead. It was all that prevented me from getting my brains bashed in. Not instincts, not training, just sheer terror. Fortunately, I fell backward right into the driver's seat of my car. I yanked the door closed, locked it, then sped out of there like I stole the damn thing. I called the police and then my manager. The guy was picked up and booked that night. I even had to identify him at the station. Always trust your gut out there, people. I work in retail. Receiving shipments for our location is one of the things that I do for my job. Since I do the paperwork for it, I have to interact with the truck drivers who also bring the shipments in. It's a task-driven job. It requires a lot of organization, but also demands a pleasant personality because of all the interaction time with the drivers. Most of them are older men in their 40s to 60s. I'm a woman in her mid-20s. This is relevant. Most of the drivers are great, helpful, and professional, but there was this one who was oddly talkative all the time. Nothing really weird, but sometimes irrelevant or mildly inappropriate conversation topics, like stuff he did back in college, his ex-girlfriends. You get the picture. I just figured he was outgoing and a bit quirky, so I was friendly with him, like I am to everyone, until a coworker, a guy who also works in receiving but in a different department, told me that he only ever hears this driver talking to or about me. Apparently, when I'm not in the room or in earshot, then he's silent or talking about me, asking where I am. Then a completely different coworker said he overheard this guy referring to me as his wife when I wasn't there. So after hearing all this weirdness, I become less bubbly around him, kept the conversation strictly to business. If he ever said anything about his personal life, I would just ignore it and then went about filing the paperwork. I wasn't rude to him or disrespectful, just simply stopped going out of my way to engage him in conversation. There was one time he got a little too friendly in the clerk's office, and my reaction was pretty knee-jerk. I couldn't help myself. I felt cornered because he was really laying it on, the lovey-dovey stuff, right in front of other people. It was the strangest, most direct form of gaslighting I've ever seen, as if I just slid right up underneath him like we've been dating for years. He made a comment, and I spun around and told him and the innocent bystander clerk that we were in no way involved, and our communication would be strictly professional from there on out. That was when he turned on me. Everything he said was an attack on my personality. They must be working you too hard. You're far less fun to be around than you used to be. You used to be a happy person. I love my job, I'm very happy here. I just don't like being creeped on by old men. Eventually, he went as far as telling other people that I was unprofessional, basically just straight up gossiping about me behind my back. And that was when I confided in my boss about how uncomfortable this guy was really making me. I actually pride myself on my outgoing nature. I'm bubbly by default, and the fact that he was causing me to have to change my personality around him, and then telling others that I was cold, parted simply just for keeping my distance. That was the line I drew. My boss filed a report. Everything died down after that, at least for a little while. My coworkers would still overhear something every now and again, but it seemed this old timer was keen to who was on my side. I figured it was water under the bridge at that point, and we just let bygones be bygones. That was until the phone calls. Every day for 3 or 4 weeks, my phone would start blowing up at random times throughout the day, at work, at home, and even in the middle of the night. I thought it was spam, but no one ever said anything. The number came up as unknown, so I didn't even know how to block them. Pardon me, had a suspicion that it had something to do with that old guy. During some of his good old day stories, he'd mistakenly copped to doing stuff exactly like this. Prank phone calls, leaving stuff on people's porches and cars, whatever. He got a kick out of messing with people he deemed to have wronged him. I started keeping tabs at work, asking my friends in other departments to keep their ears open for anything, especially anything the old guy thought was funny. I keyed them into my situation, and that if he talked to anyone about what he was doing, he'd be in a braggadocious way, and he'd be proud about it. Nothing came through the grapevine, though, but every day my phone continued to ring. Some days, especially if I was at work, I just turned it off, dumped it into my purse to get a little peace of mind. The more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Of course, this sour old man had the time to mess with me. He drove a truck for a living. He was probably on the phone 18 hours a day. With renewed confidence, I let the calls roll off my back. I'd answer them and call the guy by name, tell him what I thought about him, then hang up. Even at work, I'd look him right in the eye, shake my phone at him like we were long-lost pen pals. I could see it was getting underneath his skin. One night on the weekend, I woke up to my phone lighting up. It wasn't buzzing, just the constant on and off screen. It was enough to get me. It's an unknown caller. I roll over and answer it. As I get ready to let out a string of volleys fly out of my mouth, I hear a loud honk outside my house. I can also hear it through the phone. Now I'm legitimately creeped out. I get up and peek through the curtains to see this guy's truck in the middle of the street. The same truck he used for work. He hung up on me the second he saw the curtains part, then roared off into the dark. No more honks, no turnaround. I didn't know what to think. First my phone, and now my house. How the hell did he learn any of this information? I didn't go to sleep that night, but started putting together as many puzzle pieces as I could. By the end of the weekend, I'd constructed a pretty solid case against this. Took it straight to my boss on Monday morning. I gathered that he must have been stealing my personal information from the files at work. This was the second time I was in his office about this particular guy, so I'd already created a paper trail. When I brought the new stuff against this clown, my boss was floored. He couldn't believe it. He went on to file a second report, but this time he made a direct announcement to the entire company and other companies that we were working with. It was the start of a chain that exposed a lot of scummy weirdos harassing the office girls. This isn't technically retail, but it was a sales position that I took 1 year when I was in college. A few of my friends were in the music program and naturally joined a few bands as they networked with other local musicians. One of these projects they actually joined ended up taking off, creating a bit of local buzz, and by the end of the year, they had a couple of regular gigs around town. They started getting asked about a small regional tour. Essentially just bounce around the cities and college towns throughout our state. The guys contacted some venues, made the plans, and set their first tour for the end of the summer, right before we went back to school. One of the guys in the band had toured regionally before, so he knew some of the obstacles to watch out for, one of which being theft on the road. He encouraged bringing a van keeper to help manage the equipment, keep track of merch and sales, and generally make everything accounted for. My friend in this band asked me if I'd be interested. I was over the moon. I agreed and cleared what little plans I had and got ready for life on the road. It was nowhere near as glorious as I thought it would be. Most days were spent cramped into the back seat, fighting for room to stretch out, trying to breathe in what everyone smelled like. I'm sure you get the picture. We'd stop every few hours for gas, bathrooms, and food. All of us would get in this conga line, walk around the van a few dozen times just to get the feeling back in our legs. The actual music side of it was amazing. Watching these guys jam in a different way every night made old songs sound brand new. It was magical. The parking lot warm-ups were fun to record, and the after-party shenanigans went down in the books as some of the craziest ever. Light show alongside the music put me in a trance every night behind the merch table. Handling the sales wasn't really a big deal. That was until the shows actually ended. Only then would I get totally swarmed. People crowding in 3 or 4 different lines, all of them thinking they're at the front, all of them sweating and shouting. You get the picture. The first couple of nights were actually scary, but as time went on, I got the handle on the flow. It got easier and I became more confident. About halfway through our tour, I meet a guy named Michael. He was at one of the smaller shows in a college town where it was easier to have a conversation with somebody. We spotted each other across the showroom a couple of times. I wasn't hiding my vibe. He was cute in the music scene, and he seemed to be around my age, maybe a little older. Sometimes in the alternate scenes, it's hard to tell how old people actually are. As the night wore on, he got closer to the merch table, would occasionally wink at me, to which I would just smile and wave back. I knew he was going to come talk to me. I just enjoyed the music, sold some shirts, and wondered how far this would actually be able to go, considering I was sleeping on the road with 4 adult men. I couldn't take him back to the van, if you know what I mean, as we could only afford hotels every other night. Needless to say, Michael and I hit it off hard there at the venue. We talked for an hour while I worked the merch table. He just leaned against the wall and spoke whenever he had a chance between sales. We both said we were students, but he only had a semester left in his program. He was a nursing assistant and was going to switch to X-ray work or something along those lines. It was medical through and through and required a decent amount of school. He was beyond nice, and after the show was over, he helped me box up all the merch and carry it out to the van, then went on to help us get the music equipment inside too. I introduced him to everyone in the band, and they immediately clicked. Michael fell in with us and hung out with us the rest of the night. We found a Taco Bell and enjoyed a glamorous midnight fifth meal, as 4 touring bands are known to do. Then everyone turned into sleep, one by one. The van had a tow hitch for a little trailer, so you could cram everything in there for when we slept inside the car. Michael kept me up until almost 3 in the morning. We talked, smoked cigarettes, and gazed at the stars and enjoyed a sense of company that I typically crave. Flirty but within reason, intellectual but not technical. I loved what he said and the way he said it. That said, I'm a realist, and I knew this was some guy who I just met, who I was idolizing a bit because of how I met him. The whole being on tour mentality really punched a hole in my ability to reason. After a relentless back and forth, Michael finally agreed to head home and let me get some rest. I explained that we didn't have much to do but drive the next day, but it was miserable without any sleep. He said he understood, as he didn't actually live in the town that we were in. He'd driven from a couple of hours away to see some friends, just ended up coming to the show on a whim. We exchanged numbers, had one of those cringy, forever long 2000s emo kid hugs, and then had our first and only kiss. I climbed into the van, watched him walk across the parking lot, climb into a nice car, and zip off into the night. In that moment, I had a huge regret of not spending the whole night with him, but I was clinging to logic and knew that there was a lot of time to gamble on a guy that I just met. Better to sleep on it and touch base the next day. Who knows, maybe he's just a player and didn't even give me the right number. The next day we gassed up, got some snacks and directions, and drifted towards the next gig. I got a text from Michael before we even got on the highway, wishing me a good morning and to drive safely on our way out of town. It was nice and refreshing to see that he was a genuine guy, maybe even interested in me for real, so I hung on every word he said. He just made it back home just before sunrise. "Don't you ever sleep?" I jokingly asked him. "Nope," was his only response. Of course, anyone with a brain would assume he's kidding, but Michael turned out to be a serious weirdo. We get to the next venue to do it all over again. Unload the van, unload the trailer, then organize everything so it's in the right place. I can't tell you how many times I'd get a crate over to the merch table just to pop it open and find it full of wiring for the instruments. Then I'd have to lug this 40-pound case back behind the stage and swap it for the one actually full of shirts. At one point early on, I stepped outside really quick to grab a cigarette. I was running on fumes from the lack of sleep and wanted nothing more than just to pass out right there in the alley. I checked my phone, but as I did, I noticed something in the parking lot. A car that looked exactly like Michael's was down on the corner, parked away from the light poles. Same color, same rims, same everything. Now, Michael drove this pretty basic sedan, kind of like a Camry or Accord, so I didn't think anything of it. There are millions of that model of cars on the road. I'm sure if I looked, I'd find 10 more in the parking lot just like it. I went inside to get back to work and powered through one of the biggest shows yet. This place was totally packed, as the boys weren't the headliner tonight, but were opening for a super popular band from this town. It made for really good marketing though, because the crowd they got to open for was 5 times bigger than any of the turnouts so far. That also went for the merch sales. I got absolutely slaughtered back there, to the point I started running out of smaller sizes. Through the chaos and crazy lighting, for a split second, I thought I saw Michael leaning against the back wall. He was chilling, smiling, not waving or anything. Before I can react, my line of sight is broken and the crowd swarms me again. I forget about the whole interaction and just assume it was some kind of lookalike. The night was ripe for all kinds of new fun, but we were spent from the drive and the show and now just wanted to break down. We bucked the equipment inside the van, did a very loose inventory count of the merch, and then locked it all down until dawn. There's a dingy hole in the wall Mexican restaurant in the same plaza as the venue, the kind that's open 24 hours. Built up on burritos and rice, we elected to skip the beans because of the close proximity to one another. After dinner, a couple of the guys wandered down the lane to a bar they could see. Me and the other 2 retreated to the van to get a couple of hours of sleep. We originally planned to get this hotel in town, as the rate was a little cheaper, but everything was crazy overbooked. This weekend was apparently some big event for the community, and even the headliner band had brought in a few hundred extra people. We just took the L and slept in the van. No big deal. Everything was normal until about 1 a.m. rolled around. I could hear a very subtle tapping on the shell of the van. Half asleep, I barely even noticed it. I just figured it was the wind or something else. Not a minute goes by, the tapping turns into a knocking, like someone would knock on a door. Both me and the other two guys shoot upright, totally bewildered. We look around and see that the other two bandmates aren't in our van and so get irritated. It must be them coming back from the bar, and they've lost their keys. The windows of the van have this reflective cover on it and allows a little privacy also to keep the light out in the morning. Because these covers are up, we can't actually see who's knocking on the van. One of the guys slides up to the front seat, pulls the passenger cover back, and I'll never forget his face. It was pure disbelief. His eyes shift from the person outside to me and says, "I think it's for you." I laughed, but there was a sickening pit growing in my stomach. I didn't know a soul in either direction for 200 miles. There's no way it could be for me. I switched places with my friend in the passenger seat, peeked through to find Michael. "Holy, it is for me." I open up the door and ask him if everything's okay. He says, "Of course," asked how the night went. I tell him it went okay. I'm just confused as to why he's here. I look back at my friends in the back, and they're both giving me this what the kind of look. One looks more concerned, the other looks more annoyed. I feel a mix of both, almost perfectly blended. I remember that they asked a favor of me, and now I'm creating drama in a weird situation of having this guy stalk us, for lack of a better word. I mean, we're in a big, dumb white van with shiny windows. You can't miss it. I climbed out of the passenger seat and onto the black asphalt and let the door shut behind me. The least I can do is let the others get some rest while I deal with this situation at hand. The first thing I say is, "Oh, I didn't realize this is the town that you were talking about." He shakes his head and says, "No, I don't live here." "Oh, what brought you here?" "The tour," he says with the creepiest smile I've ever seen. I look around, and the place is a ghost town. No late night stragglers or passing cars, just me and Michael. That's when I remember seeing the guy leaning against the back wall. "Were you at the show?" I asked him. He nods at me with that same creepy smile. "I didn't want to bother you. Looked like a very busy night," he explained. "And now?" I asked. "What do you mean?" he asked. "You don't mind bothering me now?" "It's the middle of the night. I didn't even know you were here," I say. He doesn't react well to this. We go back and forth for a bit, arguing about how we arrived at this current situation. It turned out he took everything I said literally, and I mean to the T. The night before, when I said that I'd love to pick the conversation up again sometime, he meant literally the next night at the same time. When I said I wish he could ride around and tour with us, he cleared his schedule to make that happen. Nothing that I'm saying is getting through to this guy. He just keeps trying to smooth it over with me with this glassy, emotionless smile. Just as I'm getting ready to bow out, tell him to get lost, the other two bandmates come rolling up to the van. Michael gets spooked the second he sees them rolling up. I mean, totally shook, went pale and everything. I look to see how drunk the two are, but fortunately, they look alert and not too pleased to see me talking to Michael. They immediately understand that something weird is going on. Now with these two in tow, I restate everything that I was saying to Michael, who is clammed up and is nodding, listening more intently now. I let him know this was all a big misunderstanding, and that maybe it was moving a little too fast. It's not appropriate for him to be showing up in the middle of the night. He apologizes, turns on a dime, and heads for his car. We hang out in the parking lot for a few more minutes, have a cigarette, and compare notes on what the hell just took place. Everyone had a slightly different theory, but they all had the same conclusion: keep an eye out for that dude. He didn't really appear overly dangerous, but he did have the means to follow us around, and that's exactly what he did. We awoke the next morning. There was a series of letters tucked underneath the windshield wipers. Naturally, they were all addressed to me, and they were all creepy as hell. The weirdest part was that each letter was written as if it was the only one. None of them mentioned the other 9 pieces of paper plastered up and down with "Lovey Weirdo." It almost teetered on Old English. The next week was way more stressful than the first. Every day became an I Spy game of looking out for Michael in that slick set-in. The unbelievable part was just how often we spotted him. On the highway multiple times we could see him lagging behind a half a mile, trying to stay hidden behind other cars. It had to be him because we'd see it every single day. We'd see him driving around the venue, more gas stations in every town, or even parked having lunch across the street from us. He could tail us anywhere because of the van, and because we had a whole tour posted on the internet. Each town, each state, each place the band would be playing. We were sitting ducks for this guy, or at least I was. Everyone in the band was just teasing me about the stalker that I created. They weren't anywhere as concerned as I was, but they were on stage for some of the night, all eyes on them. I sat in total darkness in a back corner. Michael showed up more than one time and had me cornered back there. I'd have to get security every time to kick him out after explaining the situation. It became an almost predictable occurrence. The crazy part was some of the staff at some of the venues knew him. He was a regular, totally normal to these people. I couldn't believe it. It painted a much bigger picture, like, is this a hobby for him? We started taking measures to actually avoid him, like taking alternate routes and heading to the next town right after the show rather than wait till morning. We lost him, but who knows, maybe he was just being coy. I never went on tour again, not even as a van keeper, and I can confidently say I haven't heard from Michael in over 10 years. Hey everyone, thanks for listening. If you stuck around at this point, if you haven't yet, please hit the like button, the subscribe button, and that notification bell to be notified when future episodes come out. If you have a true scary story of your own, feel free to send it to my email or post it to my subreddit. You can stalk me on Twitter, you can stalk me on Facebook, and you can also stalk me on Instagram. All these links are in the description below. What's up, everybody? Hopefully you don't or can't hear the train choo-chooing behind me. If you can, oh well. I hope you liked this episode. I know it was a little shorter than normal. I wanted to do something different. I don't think I've done retail before. I think I have, but only in like true scary story. Retail stories are difficult because some of them are good, and then some of them, there's a lot that are just kind of like your stereotypical creepy dude following you or talking to you and making women uncomfortable and stuff like that. And while that's valid and creepy, it doesn't really fall under the umbrella of like horror true scary stories that like, I just know a lot of people get irritated with those types of stories because they are creepy, but they're not like super scary in a lot of senses. So it's hard to find retail ones, but either way, hopefully those ones were decent. I thought they were pretty good overall. There was one that was like, you know, kind of your stereotypical creepy people stuff, but hang on a second, I'm gonna go, oh, where is it? So basically I have quite a few episodes on the docket for the rest of the month, and then I've got some good ones, or at least good ideas for the following month. Got Dark Web for next week. What was the other one? Abduction, not abduction, break-in stories, then another true scary stories. I also have like cartel horror stories. Not sure which one I'm going to do. I think I'm going to do the cartel one for Saturday, Sunday time frame, something like that, and then Dark Web and what was it? I already forgot break-ins, and then the other true scary stories or whatever for the following week. And another one. Outside of that, I'm just rambling and thinking off the top of my head. And again, hopefully you like this episode, and I will see you guys in the next one. All right, here we go.